Morning. Go ahead and get your green reading book out and turn it to page 138. And I'm going to read for you for a while, and you can follow along. Last week we read Naaman, Captain Naaman, and you did a very nice job on your quiz. I was very pleased with that. So thank you for good listening and good reading on your part. Today we're going to start reading about a new story called Just Mouse. And the first chapter is called A Noise at the Door. Before you get started with any book, especially a book that has a picture, go ahead and look at the picture and kind of get your mind about, around about what this story could possibly be. I'm just looking there, and I'm seeing a mouse sitting in a chair. Looks like he's reading a book, and looks like he does have a pair of jeans on, or maybe it's a pair of overalls, but nevertheless, okay. And then I'm seeing on page 138 or 39 a mouse kind of laying down. And so I already know, just from the pictures, that this story has got to be fiction. I bet you figured that out too, right? Right. Because no mouse sits in a chair like that. No mouse reads a book, and no mouse has clothes on, right? Okay. So we know it's fiction. That means it's pretend. It's somebody made up the story. Whereas last week when we read Captain Naaman, we knew that was a true story because it was from the Word of God. It was from Scripture. It was from the Bible. And those stories, if you want to talk about them as being stories, those events are true. This is just made up. All right, so we kind of, when we start to read, we kind of approach it like, okay, well, this is just kind of silly and corny. Okay, so here we go. In the back of an old brown house in a tiny hole under a rotten board, there lived a mouse. He was an old gray mouse with trembly whiskers and a long gray tail. He lived alone, and he talked to no one but himself. Sometimes he muttered, "I like the quiet. I like living alone. I don't want to help anybody, and I don't want anybody helping me. I never want to see anybody else." And so he lived, waking up alone and going to bed alone, never seeing anyone. There is something sad about that story already. Anybody who wants to live by themselves without seeing anybody or helping anybody or doesn't want to talk to anybody kind of reminds me of the coronavirus kind of thing. Where we've been in our houses, and you're supposed to just stay in your house, you're not supposed to be out with other people. There's just something lonely about that. I love the way it starts. In the back of an old brown house. So I was kind of picturing that in my mind. Okay, it wasn't just you're like the house that you live in. It's an old house, and it's an old brown house. Like maybe it didn't even have paint on it. I don't know. And in a tiny hole under a rotten board, there lived a mouse. Now, if the rotten board was in the house, which it sounds like it kind of was, we know that this is just not really even a house where maybe even people live. It's like an old abandoned house. Because, houses just don't have rotten boards. If you have a rotten board in your house, you're probably daddy's going to have to fix it because you might get hurt. So it sounds like it was not a very good house in the first place. But this mouse lived in a hole under a rotten board. And he was not just a youngster. He wasn't a kid. He wasn't a teenager. Sometimes teenagers think that they want to get out and have a house of their own or an apartment of their own. And they're anxious to leave mom and dad and go out and make their own life and make their own decisions. Well, this guy is not that. He's an old gray mouse. And he has trembly whiskers. What did you think of when I read that? Trembly. It's kind of like shaking. Have you ever seen old people? Sometimes they just shake, and they don't shake because it's like they can't stop it. There's just something about it, and they just shake and shake and shake. Well, that's the way this mouse has his whiskers up here, and he was shaking, shaking, shaking. And he was gray, and so he had a gray tail. That makes sense. He lived alone, and he didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to help anybody. And he said, "I just want to be by myself." And that's what he was. Yes, that's his decision. He decided that he was going to get in this place where nobody ever in 100 years could find him, in the hole under a rotten board inside this old brown house. I also know from looking at that picture on page 138 that he's probably an old mouse because he has a cane. Usually old people are the only ones with canes. It's not usually teenagers that have canes. And it's not usually 8-year-olds that have canes. It's an old person that has a cane. So he has a cane there to help him walk. All right, now I'm on page 139. Well, one day Mouse lay curled up in his chair reading. I think that's the picture. The thunder crashed, the wind howled, and the rain battered against the window. Oh, don't you just love that when you read it? You know, because it's got so much emotion, there's so much sound in it. The thunder crashed, and the wind howled, and the rain battered against the window. I mean, you can just feel it, can't you? It's not just like, well, you know, the thunder was loud, the wind was blowing, and the rain was outside, you know. But these would use really good describing words. The thunder crashed, the wind howled, and the rain battered against the window. It's good to have a book to read on such a stormy afternoon, he muttered. And it's very good to be alone. That was his thoughts, or those were his thoughts. He had not been reading long when a scurrying mouse-like sound startled him. I never hear more noises like that unless I make them, he said. I wonder what that could be. Remember, he's always been by himself, so okay. Taking his old brown cane, he left his hole, and he peered around the empty house. Ah, now we know the house was empty. There, not far from his doorway, remember his doorway was a hole, okay? Not far from his doorway, he saw a wet little mouse lying very still. Well, that'd be scary enough. He must have fainted. Mouse turned to go back into his hole. I don't want to help anybody, and I don't want anybody helping me. He stopped. The mouse was very little, and he looked so weak and hungry. I guess so. Look at him. There he is laying down there, all laid down on a very wet and soggy day, right in the middle of the day, well, middle of the afternoon. And Mouse has said, yep, I don't care anything about this guy. Just let him lay there if he wants, but I don't want to help. Okay, next page. Well, I guess I could just help him dry off a little, Mouse suggested. And maybe I could give him some cheese, which is a really tasty treat if you're a mouse. Well, after only a few minutes in the dry, warm hole, the little mouse woke up enough to eat some cheese. Oh, thank you, sir, he said. You're a kind mouse. What's your name? So there's a cute picture. See, Mr. Mouse there has his cheese, and I noticed Swiss cheese. Did you know Swiss cheese has holes in it? Most of our cheeses don't, but Swiss cheese has holes, so it's fun to draw pictures of Swiss cheese, and it's easy to kind of recognize because it has holes. So the little mouse was very happy, and he thought, oh, this guy's so kind. Then he says, what's your name? And Mouse said, it's just Mouse. Nobody's ever called me anything but Mouse. I'm Nipsey, said the little voice. I came looking for help from my 2 brothers. They're caught in a mouse trap. Will you come and help me rescue them? Well, the first time I read that, I thought, great day. They're caught in a mouse trap. And 2 at the same time, that's really scary. I mean, I've caught mice in mice traps before, but 2 at a time is really strange. So then I thought, and this poor little mouse and this little Nipsey mouse wants to rescue these brothers. I think it's too late. I think if they're in a mouse trap, it's too late. But he's come for help, so let's continue. Mouse's whiskers trembled. I don't want to help anybody. He stopped when he saw a big tear. Hey, that looks like a word tear. Look at that. Tear and tear. They're the same word. Anyway, when he saw a big tear roll down Nipsey's face. Oh, that does make you just feel kind of sad there, doesn't it? Just this once, Mouse said slowly, and then you really must go away and leave me alone. Oh, thank you. Nipsey scampered around the room. Mouse picked up his old brown cane and followed Nipsey out of the house and down the trail. At least the storm has stopped, he muttered. He does a lot of muttering, doesn't he? Do you know what muttering means? It means like, kind of like talking to yourself, but usually when you mutter, it's kind of like you have an attitude, kind of that kind of thinking, where I'm doing this, but I don't really want to do it like that. They're in a house over the hill, Nipsey said as he pointed. Said Mouse. He grunted. He didn't like the idea of helping. He only liked being alone. There they are, Nipsey said. Hold on, we're going to save you, he called. Mouse looked through the cellar window, and he saw two frightened little mice comforting each other in the corner of a cage. Right there, the story has made a turn for Mrs. Harbour. Did it make a turn for you too? Because I was thinking that Nipsey was going to come back to the mousetrap, and the mice were not going to be alive. I thought the mice were going to be gone. But no, they weren't in that kind of a mousetrap. That's the kind of mousetrap I use. They weren't there. They were in a cage mousetrap, so they were alive. So that was good news right there. I really liked that because, to find a dead mouse is just, even as much as mice are kind of a pest, I don't really want to have to kill them so much. And so it was nice that they were just sitting in the corner of a cage, and they were in a cellar window. And the cellar is kind of like a basement, but it's not probably like your basement. It's kind of like a unfinished basement, more like, not a really nice area. So there they were, and they were frightened, which means they were scared. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the next page, and then I'm going to let you read after that. The next chapter is Mouse to the Rescue. Mouse thought about the problem for a moment. Well, maybe I can do something with my cane. Mouse led the way into the room through a crack in the wall. Being careful not to get too close to the trap, he wedged his cane under the cage. Together, Mouse and Nipsey pried up the cage, and two little mice scrambled out. Oh, thank you, thank you! Thank you for saving us! They scampered around and around, squeaking joyfully. Who are you? So there's the two little mice. They have gotten out of their very bad situation. And you can see the cane propped up right there. Can you see it? The cane's propped up under the cage. And there are the two mice running around and around and around. And of course, they're so happy to be free. And it reminded me of second graders with Mrs. Harbour. I can sit at my desk and, I'm all serious doing my work. And you can be running around and this is exciting and that's exciting. And I'm going here and we almost have recess time. And, all the little fun stuff that second graders do all day long. It's always exciting to Mrs. Harbour, just like it is to Just Mouse, even though he didn't want to be anybody's, didn't want anybody to help him, and he didn't want to have to help anybody. But in reality, that's really what he needed. And so here he is, and these little guys are so happy. Now, tomorrow, you're going to read the next page, the next few pages. You're going to stop at the end of the story. It's just about 4 pages away at the bottom of page 147. You're going to read that, and then you're going to take a quick online quiz. And the quiz it's for the whole story. It's not just for the part you read, but it's for the part that I just read to you. So enjoy seeing how the story turns out, and enjoy finding out what remember there's Nipsey, that's the one that came for the help. And then there's these other two little guys. And I think they're boys. I think they're boys, but I'm not sure. You check it out and find out what their names are. Okay? So enjoy reading the rest of the story. You read the next 4 pages by yourself, and then you take the online quiz. I'll see you at the online quiz part. Okay, bye-bye.